Why, and how, do animals change color?
Many animals can change their color, some over a period of seconds and others over several months. Cephalopods, a group including octopuses and squids, are especially skillful at changing color rapidly. They can turn different colors in less than a second. Their color changes are usually triggered by a heightened state excitement or fear, which brings on an amazing display of different colors spreading over their bodies. Several kinds of fish and some amphibians and lizards are also able to change colors, though their transformations take a bit more time than those of the cephalopods. Color changes take place in special pigment cells called chromatophores. Changing the size of these cells moves the pigment around, altering the animal's coloration. Such animals change their colors for a number of reasons. Those that can rapidly change colors do so to startle or confuse predators or to better blend in with their environments, a technique known as camouflaging. Camouflaging can either be used by an animal that wants to hide from an attacker, or by an animal that doesn't want to be seen by its prey. Color changes can also be used to attract a mate. Some animals undergo color changes with a change in seasons. Certain mammals and birds that live in cold climates, for example, have white fur and feathers in the winter so they can blend in with the snow and be less noticeable to their predators. Some songbirds will grow brightly colored, attractive feathers for the mating season. Those feathers are replaced by duller colors after mating is over. These color changes are also caused by pigment cells, located beneath the fur or feathers.
How is a tortoise different from a turtle?
Depending on where you live in the world, the words turtle and tortoise can be used to mean different things. Generally, in the United States, the word turtle is used to describe all members of the order Chelonia, the reptiles characterized by the shell that covers their bodies, those that live on land, in the sea, and in fresh water. Tortoise refers specifically to the group of turtles that live on land. In other words, all tortoises are turtles, but not all turtles are tortoises. Turtles look like ancient and primitive animals because that's what they are. They have survived relatively unchanged for hundreds of millions of years, thanks in large part to their hard, protective shells. Turtles can pull their arms, legs, tail, and head completely inside their shells, which in some species are strong enough to support a weight 200 times greater than their own. Not only have turtle species survived an incredibly long time, but individual turtles also have a longer lifespan than any other vertebrate, with some being known to live longer than 150 years. Turtles are legendary for their slow movement, particularly the lumbering tortoises that have been clocked at a pace of less than 1/3 of a mile, about half a kilometer, per hour. Turtles don't have teeth, but many types do have sharp, horny beaks that they can use to chew food. Most tortoises eat small, soft invertebrates like worms, slugs, and insects. While water-living turtles eat fish and even some small birds and mammals. Turtles come in a huge range of sizes. Smaller species weigh less than a pound, 454 grams. And reach only about 5 inches, 12.5 centimeters, in length. The largest tortoises have shells just under 3 feet. 1 meter, long, weighing more than 500 pounds, 225 kilograms. The Atlantic leatherback, the largest of the sea turtles, can reach 7 feet. 2.1 meters, in length and weigh around 1,200 pounds, 540 kilograms.
Can people in wheelchairs drive cars?
Depending on the severity of the person's disability. Driving a car can be an option for people in wheelchairs. Cars can be modified so that the accelerating and braking are done with hand controls. Other modifications, like ramps or motorized lifts, assist the person in getting in and out of the car.
What makes popcorn pop?
Believe it or not, most hard popcorn kernels have tiny bits of water inside. When these kernels are heated, the water gradually expands and turns into steam. At a certain point, the increasing steam can no longer be contained inside each kernel and explodes through the hard coating, causing a pop. The steam also cooks the starchy material inside kernels, turning it into the fluffy stuff we know as popcorn.
How are countries formed?
Often it is a group of people with something in common whose members identify with one another that makes up a country. It may be a shared race, religion, language, history, or culture that makes people feel that they belong together as a nation. Because of its uniqueness, the group feels that it should govern itself as an independent country. This feeling of shared identity and loyalty to the group is frequently behind the rise of nations. Some countries are so large and have such complicated histories of war and conquest that they are home to many different groups of people who have their own separate beliefs, languages, and customs. The differences between these groups sometimes make it difficult for them to get along. A nation is weakened by such groups if they put their own interests ahead of those of their country. But a population of many different groups can also enrich a country with diverse ideas and cultures if a spirit of acceptance and cooperation exists.
What do fish do in the winter when water freezes?
if a body of water freezes completely, from the surface to the bottom. Fish cannot survive for long unless they are like the Antarctic ice fish, which has chemicals resembling antifreeze in its blood to help it survive in water below freezing temperatures. For other kinds of fish, as long as there is some unfrozen water beneath the ice, they can generally survive the winter. The danger in such wintry conditions is not freezing to death but suffocating. Ice on the water's surface makes it hard for oxygen in the air to dissolve in the water. Fish can survive in very cold water in the same way land animals like bears can live out the winter. By becoming dormant, meaning slowing down bodily processes, eating very little, and consuming less oxygen.
Why do mosquito bites itch?
With her long, slender mouth parts, a female mosquito pierces the skin of her victim in order to suck its blood. She injects a substance that keeps the blood from clotting, an anticoagulant, before she drinks her fill. This foreign substance in the blood activates the victim's immune system, causing an allergic reaction around the bite. This reaction causes the swelling and itching that drive us crazy.
Are there people in the world who don't wear any clothes at all?
Yes, believe it or not, there are people in the world who don't wear any clothing at all. Tribes of primitive people still exist in places like the Pacific Island of New Guinea and especially in the Amazon region of South America. Some of these tribes' members have never met modern men and women and know nothing about the industrial world. These native, or indigenous, people live much like people did in prehistoric times, eating what grows naturally in their jungle homes and hunting with bows and arrows. In the warm, humid climates in which they live, they have no need for protective clothing, and in some cases don't have the skills or tools to make cloth. Because of their lack of contact with people from other places, they are not familiar with the idea of modesty or the practice of covering the body with clothes, which is a behavior that most people learn quickly when they are growing up. Being naked is as natural to these primitive peoples as wearing clothing is to us. In our modern world, there are also people known as nudists who enjoy not wearing clothes because it gives them a feeling of freedom. While these men and women wear clothing most of the time as they go about their regular lives, they sometimes get together in special, isolated places with others who enjoy the practice, too.
What did people use before toothbrushes were invented?
Early in human history, people used anything that they could find to keep their teeth clean. Usually a thin, sharp object, like a stick, was used to pick out food left between teeth. Chewing on the end of certain sticks would fray the wood, making a kind of brush, which could then be rubbed across the teeth. Even today, members of primitive tribes chew sticks to keep their teeth clean. The constant chewing produces more saliva than usual, which helps wash food away. Later, people found that if they rubbed abrasive elements, like salt or chalk, across their teeth, they could get rid of grime. They also used water and pieces of rough cloth to clean their teeth. Toothpicks made of all kinds of materials also became popular. Rich people had jeweled toothpicks made of gold and silver. Toothbrushes for the wealthy, with fancy handles and hawk bristles, came into use in the 18th century. Only much later, when cheaper, wooden-handled toothbrushes were made, and the importance of good dental hygiene became known, did most people start to regularly use them.
Can an airplane fly through a cloud?
Most of the time, an airplane can fly easily through a cloud, because the water droplets that form it are too small to affect the aircraft's flight in any way. Flying through a cloud is similar to driving through fog. In fact, fog is really a very low cloud, because his or her vision is obscured. A pilot must rely on navigational equipment to fly through a heavy cloud. Pilots usually try to avoid flying through storm clouds altogether. They often fly above them, because the air currents, rain, hail, or lightning associated with storm clouds can cause bumpy and sometimes dangerous rides.
Why did dinosaurs become extinct?
Scientists do not know for sure why dinosaurs became extinct. They have many different theories, some of which explain the extinction as something that happened gradually over a long period of time. Other theories suggest that a single catastrophe caused the dinosaur population to die off rather suddenly. And some scientists believe the dinosaur population had been gradually getting smaller and then was finished off by some dramatic event. Some who believe gradual changes brought about the dinosaurs' end suggest that as more and more mammals appeared, the dinosaurs had trouble competing with them for food sources. And these mammals may have eaten dinosaur eggs in such large numbers that fewer and fewer baby dinosaurs were born. Some experts believe that widespread disease killed off dinosaurs. Many suggest that gradual climate changes from continuously warm, mild weather to seasonal variations with hot summers and cold winters affected the dinosaurs. Scientists are not sure whether dinosaurs were warm-blooded or cold-blooded, and there may have been some of each. If they were cold-blooded, meaning that their body temperature changed depending on the temperature of their surroundings, it would have been difficult for such large animals to survive extreme temperatures. Smaller cold-blooded creatures can burrow under the ground, for example, to escape both heat and cold. But most dinosaurs were simply too large to do that. The scientists who believe that dinosaurs became extinct after a major catastrophe point to evidence that suggests a huge asteroid, perhaps several miles wide, hit Earth. The impact of such an object would have created enormous clouds of dust and other debris. The heat of impact would have started fires over a great area. Between the dust clouds and the smoke from the fires, sunlight would have been blocked, maybe for several months. A lack of sunlight would have caused a dramatic drop in temperature, and much plant life would have died. Without plants, the plant-eating dinosaurs and many other animals would have died. Without the plant-eating dinosaurs and those other animals, the meat-eating dinosaurs would eventually die as well. Some scientists argue that not all dinosaurs became extinct. The striking similarities between modern birds and some kinds of dinosaurs have led some people to believe that birds are living descendants of dinosaurs.
Why does a rooster crow when the sun comes up?
A farm rooster is an adult male chicken. Long ago, when chickens had not yet been tamed or domesticated by people and lived in the wild, roosters crowed to call female chickens to mate. This loud crowing caused problems for roosters, though, because it attracted predators as well as female chickens. So to avoid being eaten, roosters began to do most of their crowing when they couldn't be easily seen. Like at dawn or at nightfall, when light was dim. Today's roosters continue the habit, crowing mostly in the early morning or early evening. But it is usually most noticeable at dawn because there aren't a lot of other activities and noises to distract your attention.
Why weren't you born with better teeth?
One reason could be that you inherit different traits from each of your parents. And sometimes they don't work well together. If you inherited your mother's small jaw, for example, but your father's large teeth, you are going to have crowding problems in your mouth. Your teeth will slope backwards or forwards, or turn, or overlap one another in order to try to fit into their small space. On the other hand, if your teeth are too small for your jaws, you will have big gaps between your teeth. These are just a few of the problems that an orthodontist tries to correct. Try to remember that wearing braces for a few years when you are young will give you a lifetime of healthier, good-looking teeth. Also remember to brush and floss more often when you have braces, because they trap food particles against your teeth.
Do snakes have slimy skin?
Looking at a snake, many people might assume that its skin feels wet and slimy. But snakes, like all reptiles, actually have dry, scaly skin. This tough outer covering helps reptiles keep necessary amounts of moisture in their bodies. Some snakes have a ridge in the middle of their scales, but many are smooth to the touch. Depending on its external conditions, if it's lying in a cold, shady spot or basking on a hot, sunny rock, its skin will either feel cool or warm to the touch.
Can a boy and girl be twins?
Usually a woman's ovaries, the reproductive organs that produce the eggs, release just one egg each month. If that egg is fertilized by a man's sperm, then a baby eventually begins to grow in the uterus of the woman. Once in a while, however, two eggs are released at the same time. Both eggs may become fertilized by two different sperm, and then two babies will grow. The babies will develop at the same time, and they will be born together as twins. But unlike identical twins, these fraternal twins, as they are called, will not have identical genes. Because they have developed from different eggs and sperm. Fraternal twins can be as different as any two siblings can be, they just happen to share their mother's uterus. Fraternal twins can consist of one boy and one girl, or two girls, or two boys. They may look alike, but they may not. They may grow up to have similar interests, or they may pursue very different paths.
But how does the metal switch in a toaster bend?
It bends because it is made of two metals that are joined together, something called a bimetal switch. One metal, usually brass, expands quickly when heated, while the other expands much more slowly. This difference causes the switch to bend toward the low expansion metal. Bimetal switches are used in other appliances that switch electricity on and off to keep their temperatures even, like irons and refrigerators. The thermostat that regulates the temperature of your home by turning your furnace and air conditioner on and off also uses a bimetal switch.
How long will I live?
Because medical science has eliminated or brought under control many of the diseases that once kept people from reaching old age, it is likely that you will live a very long time. Today, the average life expectancy of a man living in the United States is around 74 years. The average American woman will reach the age of 80. Just 100 years ago, the average lifespan was more than 25 years shorter. And because medical science continues to improve healthcare and is studying old age and trying to find ways to slow it, people are expected to live even longer. Many factors contribute to a long life. Usually people live longer in Western Europe and North America, and in Japan, than in Latin America, Asia, or Africa. Average lifespans are longer in wealthier, developed, politically stable countries where safe and hygienic housing, healthy diets, and good medical care are common. Another important factor that determines long life is the genetic information you inherit from your parents, which give you certain physical and health characteristics. If your great-grandparents and grandparents reached old age, for instance, you have a good chance of reaching it yourself. But even if they didn't, don't be concerned. You can overcome a lot of inherited traits simply by following a healthy lifestyle. Eating a good diet, getting regular medical care, and keeping physically active all contribute to a longer life.
What is the United Nations?
The United Nations, or UN, is an international organization that works to maintain peace and cooperation among nations. Headquartered in New York City, the UN was formed in 1945, right after World War II. The war was the largest and most costly in human history, involving most of the world and killing tens of millions of people. The countries that founded the organization wanted to make sure that no such war ever happened again, by creating a place where all nations of the world could meet and peaceably solve their problems. Representatives of more than 180 countries join together in regular sessions. Those special sessions can be called to vote on political, economic, and humanitarian matters taking place around the world. A special Security Council is responsible for preserving peace among nations by resolving disagreements between countries or taking actions to stop situations that threaten world peace. In addition to resolving conflicts, the United Nations also oversees other agencies that help provide the world's citizens with healthcare, environmental protection, legal aid, and many other services.
Why are there so many big trucks on the road?
The purpose of most trucks is to transport goods. Trucks carry materials and parts for manufacturing, finished goods, and food items from the places where they are produced to the places where they are needed. Everything that you see in a store got there by truck. No wonder there are so many trucks on the road. The bigger the truck, the more goods it can carry during a single trip. But for safety reasons, the length of trucks as well as the amount of weight that they are allowed to carry is often regulated. Even things produced overseas eventually make their way to you by truck, either flown over by cargo plane or shipped by boat. The goods eventually make their way into trucks as they start their overland journey. Not too long ago, though, most goods were transported especially over long distances by railroad. Some still are. but trucks gradually took over the job as roadways expanded and improved. Trucks were preferable because they could take goods directly to their destinations while trains could only travel between stations. When you look at how many abandoned railroad yards and tracks there are around the country, it helps you realize the important role they once played in transporting goods.
Which sharks pose a danger to people?
There are more than 350 shark species, and only a few of them have been known to attack people. Contrary to the habits of the bloodthirsty shark featured in the Jaws movies, scientists don't believe that sharks purposefully hunt people. In most cases where sharks have attacked humans, they were probably protecting their territory or mistaking the person for a seal or another type of shark prey. Unprovoked shark attacks do happen, but they are pretty rare. The International Shark Attack File at the University of Florida recorded fewer than 80 such attacks throughout the world in 2000, 10 of those resulted in death. Around 30 different kinds of sharks have been known to attack people, with the white shark, the bull shark, and the tiger shark being the most common aggressors.
Which country is the largest?
Russia is the largest country in the world, with 6,592,812 square miles, 17,075,383 square kilometers, of area. It stretches across two continents, Europe and Asia. It is far bigger than the next largest country in the world, Canada, which has 3,851,809 square miles, 9,976,185 square kilometers, of area.
How many different languages are there?
There are more than 4,000 languages spoken in the world today. In some large countries, several languages are spoken. India has more than 800. In other large countries, different versions or dialects of the same language are spoken in different areas. In both cases, an official language is usually chosen for the country. That language is used in schools, by the mass media, like television, and by the government. Many languages have no written form. Tribal languages, like some spoken in Africa and Australia, for example, have been passed on orally, by word of mouth. Such unrecorded native languages often disappear when their speakers learn and use the official languages of the countries in which they live. In fact, one reason that languages like Spanish and English are spoken in so many different parts of the world is because people who spoke them conquered and colonized many foreign lands, replacing native cultures and languages with their own. For a long time people have been trying to invent a world language that everyone can speak and understand. Attempting to remove the barriers that different languages create. The best known of these is Esperanto, invented by a Polish man named Ludwig L. Zamenhof in the late 19th century. This and other international languages have not been very successful. Universal pictures, signs, and symbols have actually been the most effective way of communicating worldwide. Another way to break the language barrier is to study a second language like French or Spanish. Many people in the world know at least 2 languages very well. Such people are considered bilingual, or multilingual if they know more than 2 languages.
Why do I have to do homework?
Sometimes there are not enough hours in the school day to get everything done or to learn all that needs to be learned about a subject. Then you have to use your time outside of school to finish the work. When you don't do homework, you are only hurting yourself by not learning or practicing what you need to know. Homework is not just something you do to make your teacher happy. Completing school assignments and doing school projects outside the classroom can teach you important skills. 2. Like how to manage your free time, work independently, or use resources in a library.
Why do helium-filled balloons float up in the air?
While it may seem strange, the gases that make up air have weight. A cubic yard of air at sea level, which serves as the starting point from which all measurements of elevation, ocean depth, and atmosphere begin, weighs more than 2 pounds. When a balloon is filled with a gas like helium, which weighs less than air, it floats.
What's wrong with your eyes if you're color blind?
The back of your eye, the retina, is lined with 2 special types of nerve cells, both named because of their shapes. Rods see black and white and work well in poor light, while cones see colors and fine details, but only in bright light. When you see an object, each rod and cone cell sends a signal to the brain's sight center, where information about color, form, shading, and light combine to create a visual image. Cones contain substances that respond separately to each of the colors red, green, or blue, which combine to make other colors. When a person is color blind, he or she is usually missing some of these substances in his or her cones. It is very rare that someone has none of these substances and sees everything in shades of black, white, and gray. The most common form of color blindness is the inability to see. The difference among some shades of green and some shades of red. The condition usually doesn't cause many problems in everyday life. Though it is important to learn if a child has the defect as soon as possible, because the color red is often used as a danger signal, as in traffic lights, for example. Many more males than females are color blind, and the condition is inherited.
How do bees make honey?
Honeybees collect sweet nectar from flowers and bring it back to their nests or hives. There it is stored for future use, for its sugar provides honeybees with the energy they need. The nectar is stored as honey, which is a thick, concentrated form of nectar that has been converted in the bee's digestive tracts. Honey is stored in many little compartments or cells in the nest, called a hive, which the bees seal over with wax, something they also produce. We call this honey-filled wax honeycomb. Beekeepers take honeycomb from the hive, leaving enough behind for the bees, using the wax for candle making and the honey to sweeten all kinds of foods.
Why can't I taste anything when I have a cold?
Even though your mouth has thousands of taste buds, most of them located on your tongue. The way food smells greatly affects your sense of taste. Your tongue can only sense 4 flavors: sweet, salty, sour, and bitter. It is the different smells of foods that allow you to experience a wide variety of tastes. When you have a head cold, the lining of your nose is swollen and produces extra, thick mucus. This mucus keeps the scent particles of food from getting to your olfactory center, located on top of your nasal cavity. These scent particles cannot reach the thick batch of hairs there that send smell impulses to your brain.
Why are there days in a year?
A long time ago, thousands of years, in some cases. When ancient societies recognized the need to record events and plan future happenings, calendars came into being. In colder climates, a calendar reflected the changing of the seasons and the movements of Earth around the Sun. A solar, or sun-based, calendar, with some modifications made by different regions and religious groups, is in use in most of the world today. In warmer climates, where seasons passed without dramatic climate changes, calendars were based on the actions of the moon. Such moon-based, or lunar, calendars still exist in a few places. In the system of solar calendars, the length of a day is determined by the approximate amount of time it takes Earth to rotate once on its axis, about 24 hours. The length of a year is measured by the time it takes Earth to rotate around the Sun. 365 days, 5 hours, 48 minutes, and 46 seconds. In 45 BC, Roman Emperor Julius Caesar instituted what came to be known as the Julian calendar. The Julian calendar was based on a solar year, with a year consisting of 365 days, 6 hours. The year was divided into months that were either 30 or 31 days long. Except for February, which has 28 days. Caesar also decreed that the year would begin with January 1st, previously the year had begun on March 25th. Coinciding with the beginning of spring in the northern hemisphere. It turned out that the Julian calendar, still in use in some parts of the world. In estimating that a year is 365 days, 6 hours, was off by almost 12 minutes. After several hundred years, those minutes added up. And the Julian calendar was about a week off course from the movements of Earth around the Sun. In 1582 another major calendar reform took place, this time instituted by Pope Gregory XIII. The Gregorian calendar, used in the United States and most other countries of the world today, made further adjustments to align it more closely to astronomical movements.
Why is mercury used in thermometers?
Mercury, the only common metal that has a liquid form at room temperature, doesn't become a solid until it reaches -38 degrees Fahrenheit, -39 degrees Celsius. Most liquids freeze in temperatures like that. Mercury doesn't boil until 611 degrees Fahrenheit, 357 degrees Celsius, and it doesn't stick to glass. So mercury is an ideal material to use in thermometers, which are often needed to record temperatures well below zero and well into the range where most liquids boil. Colored alcohol is sometimes used in thermometers, but because it boils easily, it is not good for recording high temperatures. Like all liquids, mercury expands when it is heated and contracts when it is cooled. In a thermometer it moves up and down in a closed tube on which a scale is marked, showing the temperature of the air, liquid, or solid that surrounds it. A major disadvantage to mercury is that it is extremely poisonous. Some states in the US have banned the sale of mercury thermometers, and others are expected to follow. Mercury thermometers should be handled with care. If a thermometer breaks and mercury spills out, cleanup should be done by an adult wearing rubber gloves. The mercury beads should be scooped up with a piece of stiff cardboard and placed in a container with a lid. Anything that touched the mercury gloves, cardboard container should be sealed in 2 layers of plastic bags. A local waste disposal agency can advise on how best to dispose of the bag containing the mercury.
How does a tape recorder work?
A tape recorder uses a magnetic language to record and play back music, words, and sounds. It does this by way of a plastic tape coated with tiny iron particles that are arranged in a haphazard way. Sound that enters a tape recorder's microphone is turned into electrical signals. These electrical signals, in turn, are changed into magnetic signals by an electromagnet, located in the recording head. When a recording tape rubs against the head as it winds from one spool to another, its metal particles are magnetized and rearranged in patterns that correspond with the different sounds being recorded. When a tape is played back, the reverse process takes place. When rubbed across a playing head, the iron particles of a tape send magnetic signals that are converted into electrical signals. These signals are then changed by the tape recorder's speaker into sound. The videocassette player, VCR, that you use to record television shows and play movies has a similar magnetic language. All the information that makes up sound and pictures can be stored on a videotape in magnetized metal particles, arranged in complicated patterns. Videotapes are much wider than cassette tapes because they carry so much more information.
What causes day and night?
Besides orbiting around the Sun, Earth turns in a circle, or rotates from west to east on its own axis, an imaginary line running through the center of the planet spinning like a top. A complete rotation takes about 24 hours, or 1 day. When the part of Earth on which we live is turned away from the light of the Sun, we have nighttime. At the same time, people on the other side of the world have daytime. As Earth continues its movement, we move toward the Sun's light, and day comes.
What do the stars and stripes on the United States flag mean?
When the first United States flag was adopted in 1777, it had 13 alternating red and white stripes. 7 red, 6 white, and, in the upper left portion, 13 white stars on a blue background. The number 13 was chosen because that was the number of original states that formed the United States. For several years after that design was adopted, a new stripe and a new star were added each time a new state joined the Union. But in 1818 Congress decided to keep the number of stripes at 13 and simply add a new star for each new state. The U.S. flag has several nicknames: the Stars and Stripes, the Star-Spangled Banner, and Old Glory. At the time the U.S. flag was designed, the stars and stripes, and the colors of each, were given no specific meaning. The ideas for the design most likely were based on other countries' flags. In 1782, when the national seal was designed and the flag was incorporated into it, national leaders decided that each color and symbol should have a meaning. As reported in the book Our Flag, published by the U.S. House of Representatives in 1989, it was decided that red symbolized hardiness, strength, and valor, bravery. White symbolized purity and innocence, and blue represented vigilance, perseverance, and justice. It has also been said that the stars are symbols of the heavens, and the stripes represent rays of light coming from the sun.
Why does high humidity make a day feel warmer?
Just as the wind affects how we feel and how our bodies react to cold temperatures. Humidity, or moisture in the air, affects how we feel and react to warm temperatures. High humidity slows down the evaporation of perspiration, or sweat, which our bodies produce to cool off. So 2 days with the same outdoor temperature will seem quite different if the humidities vary. With the high humidity day feeling warmer. The heat index is a chart developed to show how different levels of humidity make various temperatures feel to us, and how our bodies will react. The heat index is important to know because serious health conditions like heat exhaustion and heat stroke can occur on very hot, muggy days if care is not taken.
Why are zebras striped?
Zebras are black and white, or brown and white. Striped members of the horse family that live and graze in the grassy open plains and brush country of Africa. They usually live in large herds of several hundred. Although they are fast runners, up to 40 miles, or 60 kilometers per hour, they are often overtaken by lions and leopards, their main predators. It would seem that such bold stripes and stark colors would make the zebra an easy target for its predators. But scientists believe that their stripes help zebras blend in with each other, making it difficult for a predator to single out one zebra to attack. Some have suggested that zebra stripes resemble patterns of light and shadow in brush and grass, fooling the animal's predators from a distance.
Why do people and countries go to war with one another?
Wars have taken place since the beginning of recorded history, and they surely occurred before that as well. A war begins when one group of people, the aggressors, tries to force its will on another group of people, and those people fight back. War frequently springs from the differences between people, or from the desire of one group to increase its power or wealth by taking control of another group's land. Often the aggressors feel that they are superior to the group they want to dominate. They believe that their religion, culture, or even race is better than that of the people they wish to defeat. This sense of superiority makes them feel that it is acceptable to fight to take the land, possessions, and even lives of the inferior group, or to force their ways on the dominated people so that they resemble their conquerors. When Europeans settled North America, for example, the Native Americans who lived there fought a series of wars with them for the next 250 years, trying to keep their land and preserve their way of life. They eventually lost the battle and were forced to either live like their European conquerors or relocate to parcels of land set aside for them called reservations. Civil wars take place between groups of people within a single country. And international wars occur between nations. Because countries can be very different from one another in government, religion, customs, and ideology, ways of thinking, it is not surprising that nations disagree on many things. But great efforts are usually made to settle the disagreements through discussion and negotiation. A process called diplomacy before they result in anything as destructive as a war. War usually occurs when diplomacy fails. Because science and technology have allowed us to create such powerful and destructive weapons that can result in such devastating wars. We now have international organizations that work all the time to try to keep peace among nations.
What is air?
Air is a mixture of gases that circle Earth, kept in place by gravity. Air makes up Earth's atmosphere. The air we breathe is 78% nitrogen gas, 21% oxygen, 0.9% argon, and 0.03% carbon dioxide, along with water vapor floating molecules of water. Also present are traces of other gases and tiny bits of dust, pollen grains from plants, and other solid particles. As our atmosphere extends higher and higher above Earth, toward outer space, air becomes thinner and the combination of gases in the air changes.
How many different plants are there?
Scientists have found and described more than 275,000 kinds of plants. But they believe that many more are yet to be discovered. Plants vary greatly in size and appearance. Some, like single-celled algae, are so small that you can only see them with the help of a microscope. Others, like giant sequoia trees, are so big that you can't even see the tops of them. Plants are very different from one another because they have developed features over millions of years to help them live in the world's many different environments.
How many time zones are there in the United States?
The continental United States, meaning the 48 states on the North American continent, which excludes Hawaii and Alaska, is divided into 4 time zones. From east to west, they are Eastern, Central, Mountain, and Pacific. Each of these time zones is 1 hour apart, with times being successively earlier as you move west. So if it's 3 p.m. Eastern Time, it's 2 p.m. Central Time, 1 p.m. Mountain Time, and noon Pacific Time. The Alaska time zone is 1 hour behind Pacific time, so when it's noon in California, it's 11:00 a.m. in Alaska. Hawaii's time zone for part of the year is 1 hour behind Alaska. Hawaii does not participate in daylight saving time, however, so during that period, from April to October, when most of the U.S. states have set their clocks forward 1 hour, Hawaii stays at standard time and is 2 hours behind Alaska.
Why did dinosaurs become extinct?
Scientists do not know for sure why dinosaurs became extinct. They have many different theories, some of which explain the extinction as something that happened gradually over a long period of time. Other theories suggest that a single catastrophe caused the dinosaur population to die off rather suddenly. And some scientists believe the dinosaur population had been gradually getting smaller and then was finished off by some dramatic event. Some who believe gradual changes brought about the dinosaurs' end suggest that as more and more mammals appeared, the dinosaurs had trouble competing with them for food sources. And these mammals may have eaten dinosaur eggs in such large numbers that fewer and fewer baby dinosaurs were born. Some experts believe that widespread disease killed off dinosaurs. Many suggest that gradual climate changes from continuously warm, mild weather to seasonal variations with hot summers and cold winters affected the dinosaurs. Scientists are not sure whether dinosaurs were warm-blooded or cold-blooded, and there may have been some of each. If they were cold-blooded, meaning that their body temperature changed depending on the temperature of their surroundings, it would have been difficult for such large animals to survive extreme temperatures. Smaller cold-blooded creatures can burrow under the ground, for example, to escape both heat and cold. But most dinosaurs were simply too large to do that. The scientists who believe that dinosaurs became extinct after a major catastrophe point to evidence that suggests a huge asteroid, perhaps several miles wide, hit Earth. The impact of such an object would have created enormous clouds of dust and other debris. The heat of impact would have started fires over a great area. Between the dust clouds and the smoke from the fires, sunlight would have been blocked, maybe for several months. A lack of sunlight would have caused a dramatic drop in temperature, and much plant life would have died. Without plants, the plant-eating dinosaurs and many other animals would have died. Without the plant-eating dinosaurs and those other animals, the meat-eating dinosaurs would eventually die as well. Some scientists argue that not all dinosaurs became extinct. The striking similarities between modern birds and some kinds of dinosaurs have led some people to believe that birds are living descendants of dinosaurs.
What is a widow?
A widow is a woman whose husband has died but who has not remarried. She may or may not have children. Similarly, a man whose wife has died but who has not remarried is called a widower. You may be familiar with the word because of the poisonous black widow spider, which lives in North and South America. It gets its name from the fact that the female may eat the male after mating, making herself a widow.
What is the smallest lizard?
Geckos, sometimes spelled geckos, are the smallest types of lizards. They are only about 1 inch, 3 centimeters, long. Geckos got their name from the frequent chirping and clicking noises they make. Most reptiles don't make any noise at all. They like warm climates, and, unlike many other reptiles, they frequently live peacefully among humans, probably because they are harmless. They are less threatening because of their small size, and their insect diet is helpful to humans. The tiny, hair-like coverings on their flattened feet make geckos extraordinary climbers. They are able to grip even very smooth surfaces. And they can climb straight up walls and even walk across ceilings.
Will I die someday?
Because all living things must die when they complete their life cycle. And because no person has ever escaped death, it is certain that you will die someday. But because medical science has eliminated or brought under control many of the diseases that once kept people from reaching old age, it is likely that you will live a very long time. Today, the average life expectancy of a man living in the United States is around 74 years. The average American woman will reach about 80 years of age. And because medical science continues to improve healthcare and is studying old age and trying to find ways to minimize its effects, the average lifespan is expected to climb higher still. For people fortunate enough to live in a wealthy, industrialized nation like those in North America and Western Europe, their chances of living a longer life are improved by those countries' high-quality living conditions, food supply, and medical care. Your genes, inherited from your parents, also play a role in your lifespan. In addition to determining things like your hair color and height, your genes can also affect your ability to avoid certain diseases or conditions. Finally, your behavior and lifestyle have a lot to do with how long you'll live. Eating right, getting enough sleep, exercising, and seeking regular medical care can all contribute to a longer life.
What's the advantage of having holes in donuts?
From a baker's point of view, it makes it easier to cook the cake more evenly. Because the heat of the hot oil can penetrate from the outside and from the inside. Without their holes, Donuts would sometimes end up with uncooked middles. And if a baker tried to fry a holeless cake a little longer to get the inside done just right, the outside would often be overcooked.
Which is colder, the North Pole or the South Pole?
The Antarctic, the region of the South Pole, is colder than the Arctic, the region of the North Pole. Temperatures are warmer in the Arctic because there is no huge land mass there, and the ice cover in the region sometimes breaks, allowing some of the warmth of the Arctic Ocean into the air. It's hard to think of the Arctic Ocean as warm, but it has enough thermal energy or heat to raise the air temperature several degrees. The Antarctic, on the other hand, consists almost entirely of Antarctica, a continent of 5.5 million square miles, 8.8 million square kilometers, covered with ice, with an average thickness of 6,500 feet, or 1,982 meters. Winter temperatures in Antarctica can be some 50 degrees Fahrenheit. 10 degrees Celsius, colder than those in the Arctic.
Do piranhas ever attack people?
Piranhas have a reputation for being vicious hunters with a strong attraction to the scent of blood. While they do have very sharp, pointy teeth and powerful jaws, and they sometimes hunt in large groups, piranhas rarely attack humans or any other large animals. Found mostly in the rivers and lakes of South America. Piranhas can grow to be 2 feet, 60 centimeters, long. Their preferred prey are fish that are smaller or only slightly larger than themselves. Groups of piranhas have been known to attack larger animals that have wandered into their territory, engaging in a feeding frenzy and rapidly removing hunks of the animal's flesh. But such incidents are quite rare, and many species of piranhas get most of their food from scavenging, meaning they feed on the remains of fish that are already dead.
What are the greenhouse effect and global warming?
A greenhouse is a glass structure built for plants. The glass walls and ceiling allow the light from the sun to enter but prevent the sun's heat from leaving, providing the kind of warm climate greenhouse plants need. Certain gases in the atmosphere act in much the same way as the glass panels of the greenhouse, letting sunlight shine through to the ground and trapping the heat produced by that light. The greenhouse effect happens naturally, without human interference. But by introducing large amounts of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, human beings have turned a natural occurrence into a potential problem. With the industrialization of the 1800s and 1900s, the amount of greenhouse gases increased tremendously. Some greenhouse gases, like carbon dioxide, are produced by burning such fuels as coal, natural gas, and oil. The amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere has increased by about 25% in the last 200 years. Plants absorb some carbon dioxide, but much of it rises to the atmosphere, contributing to the greenhouse effect. Other gases that contribute to the greenhouse effect are ozone and methane. If too much heat is trapped in the atmosphere, it may eventually make Earth's climate warmer. This effect, known as global warming, may seem harmless enough. And if you live in a place with harsh winters, it might even seem like a good thing. But the delicate balance of life on Earth can be severely disrupted by a change in the planet's climate. If the temperature of Earth's surface increased enough, it could melt the polar ice caps. The massive, thick ice formations at the North and South Poles, raising the level of the oceans and possibly flooding coastal areas. Climate changes can also affect weather patterns, changing rainfall and snowfall amounts and making storms more severe and the lives of plants and animals.